Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Yvonne Priest Show 8-Bit. It's been a minute, I know, but today we are coming in to see you guys with someone incredibly awesome, someone I absolutely have loved since I was a child. We are going to be talking to Neverland's favorite lost boy, Thud Butt himself, Raushan Hammond. Raushan, thank you for being on the show, mate.
Oh, thank you. This is awesome.
No,
And I love
seriously.
your accent.
Thank you. I feel like it grinds a little bit sometimes, so hopefully you don't get kind of annoyed of it after a while.
I don't mind.
So, one thing I'd love to ask first is how does it feel to see something that not only you did as a child, but what was basically your first film role just resonate with people so many years after you did it?
It's actually it's very cool. It's weird at the same time. It's interesting because when you're actually making a feature film or even a TV show, and I've done commercials and stuff, you don't think that you're just saying the line. You don't think that people are going to actually remember it. And fortunately, I was able to do Hook and do a couple of other things that resonated with people. Where they'll come up to me on the street and say different little words or little lines from the movie. But it's just so crazy because I remember with Hook, like Bangarang. I remember seeing that on the script, and that was so weird to me. Like I kept telling Steven Spielberg, like Bangarang, like what? And saying like, "There you are, Peter," and the marble, all that stuff. I thought it was so odd, and for us to say it, if we said it, let's say in the movie three, four, five times, other scenes that were cut, we probably said it 1,000 times. So it got so annoying. Like we said, "There you are, Peter," so many times, and Bangarang so many times, but I had no idea. It didn't probably even hit me until maybe 10 years ago that I would go to church, a Walmart, a grocery store, and people would come up to me and say Bangarang, and I'm like, really? You know, so it's weird. It's weird, but it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Just never know.
So, what about something like this? Do you find that weird or cool at the same time?
I think that's pretty cool. I remember when they actually Mattel came down to the set of Hook, and they came up to me with Steven Spielberg, and they said, "Hey, we're gonna make a toy, out of you." And they had me just like take like 4 pictures, and I was just like, "Okay." And then they came back like a month later and like, "Here's your toy," and I saw it, and I was just like, "Wow, that's so weird." But yeah, it's pretty awesome. I love that, and you know, especially when I do some of the Comic-Con conventions. I love when people come up to me and they have the toy and they want me to autograph it and sign it and stuff. So it's pretty neat.
So, was Hook your first film that you actually did?
It technically was well, I had done a couple of smaller films. Um, I did mostly student films.
Mhm.
But before Hook, I'd already done like 20 commercials. I did like 70, excuse me, I'd done like 7-Eleven commercials. I did, like McDonald's commercials, Little Caesars commercials. I think I'd maybe had done a couple of sitcoms. Um, then I did a bunch of, or a handful, I should say, of student films. And I forget the actor, but there's a couple well-known actors that are well-known to this day. Forgot the guy's name. It was the young man that was in the first Blade movie. He was the vampire that was fighting Wesley Snipes, and the very first Blade that came out, that guess that was 98 or 99. But I think his name was Steven
Steven
something.
Dorff?
Dorr. That
Yeah.
was it. Steven Dorr.
Yeah.
And so him and I, and like Tien Tamara from the show Sister Sister used to go to this, I forgot the name of it, but it was near Hollywood, and we would go and meet a lot of up and coming film directors, and they would ask different actors to do student films, for them to get some sort of film credit. So that's where I got my start, because I always wanted to do a movie. And then finally, I think when I was 8 years old, I got called to audition for Hook. And I think at that time it was called something different. But anyways, I went and I did the audition, and my character's name was Ziggy, and Ziggy wound up becoming Pockets. So the little boy that grabs Robin Williams' face and pulls him back and says, "There you are, Peter." That's who I auditioned for. So the script was Ziggy. The character's name was Ziggy, and then they liked me for the role, and then they told me, they said, and mind you, I'm 8 years old and I've always been afraid of heights. They told me, hey, if we hire you today, do you mind getting in a treehouse that's 200 or 300 feet in the air and being on a bridge that collapses and saying these lines to Peter Pan? And I said, yeah, I mind. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to get. And then I remember telling them, why do we have to film it 200 or 300 feet in the air? Why can't we film it on the floor and just tilt the camera and the audience wouldn't know the difference? And the casting director said, okay, thank you. So they dismissed me and I didn't get the part. And then I think 6 months later, by accident, they had a little boy that was playing the role. They had added in a role of a little boy named Thudbutt. And the little boy had one line. And I think the little boy just needed to run and say, who's the shrub? And they brought me in and they were in such a rush because unfortunately, one of the other little kids that they cast, they didn't care for the little kid. I wasn't there. I don't know the whole history, so don't hate me, but I don't know the whole history. But anyways, they fired the little boy. And they didn't want to fire him till they casted someone else. So they had me come to the set. I went to the set. I saw Robin Williams briefly. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't even know it was Peter Pan. They just said, come in for Hook. It was either Hook or Hawk. And my agent didn't know. And then when I got there, they had me meet Steven Spielberg. And because social media hadn't been around, I didn't know who Steven Spielberg was. I knew his name from, Five-O Goes West and Jaws and E.T., but he was just this short, regular man that just walked over to me. And he just told me to play basketball. And I was literally in the set of Hook. And they had a basketball court, and I just started playing basketball. And then it was so bizarre, like Jaleel White that was in Family Matters.
Yes.
They filmed next door. So he walked over and started playing basketball with me. And then they had a mat. And then they asked me on the little cushiony floor mat, could I do a backflip? And I was a really big fat kid. So I just jumped up in the air and fell down on the mat. And Steven Spielberg started laughing. And he looked at me and he smiled. And he said, do you have stars in your eyes? And I just looked at him and smiled. And he literally went to grab my arm, grab my wrist. And his manager or something said, no, don't touch that kid. And he just said, okay. And it was so awkward. And then the manager pulled Steven Spielberg away. And then we left the set. And 15 minutes later, they called me and said I had the part. Because basically, Steven Spielberg was trying to grab my wrist to say, kid, you got the part. Because that's how he hired the kid that was in E.T. He just said, kid, you got it. But his management or whatever was like, no, we'll just call him, I guess. Think about it. So I got the part. And then I went to wardrobe the next day, got that outfit. They put together the whole outfit for me. And then it was kind of sad. This is the first time I'm actually telling this story. I went to the set of Hook, and I got my script. It's 150 pages. And when I get my script, a little boy comes over and his mother comes over and they look at me and they say, who are you? And I go, Raushan. And they go, oh, we haven't seen you on set. What role do you play? And I go, I play Thudbutt. And the little boy says, well, that's weird. I play Thudbutt too.
Oh, no.
And I was just I'm like, what does that mean? And then next thing you know, the managers, the manager and the agents and everything, they walked in and fired the little boy. And the little boy was so sad and he left. And I didn't know what was going on. And then they told me I was the new Thudbutt. And then I sat around for 8 hours. I didn't film. And then I sat around the second day for 8 hours and didn't film. And then the third day, I sat around for 8 hours and didn't film. And then the fourth day, they brought me in and they said, hey, do you think you can fit in a barrel? And I was like, what do you mean? What's a barrel? And they actually edited the scene. I wish they would have put more of it in. But they basically put me in a real barrel with a helmet. It was like a boxing, little rubber helmet. And it was glued to the top of the barrel. And they put me in the barrel. And they took the barrel and rolled it down a hill. And that's the scene when Robin Williams first walks in and the barrel hits Robin Williams. and he flips in the air, and the barrel rolls down. And when it lands, it opens up like that. It flowers open. And I'm supposed to come out of the barrel and say, "Who's the shrub?" And I was so like claustrophobic from it that when it finally opened, I went, "What's my line?" And Steven Spielberg just burst out laughing. The whole cast started laughing. I didn't know what was funny. So they put me back in the crate, the barrel again, put the helmet on me and everything. And I'm yelling, saying, "This hurts." They rolled it back. Second time goes, the barrel plops open, and I go, "I forgot my line." So Steven Spielberg finally says, "You know what? We're not going to put the kid back in the barrel. Your line is, 'Who's the shrub?' We're just gonna cut it and piece it together." So that's why in the movie you see the barrel roll down and hit Robin Williams, and then it cuts, and then you just see me standing right there. But originally it was supposed to be so cool. The barrel was supposed to go in sections. It was supposed to go pop, 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 and then I came out. That would have been neat, but I was just too claustrophobic for that. So
I could imagine you would have been claustrophobic to stick you in a barrel.
yeah,
God.
I'm 9 years old.
Well, look, I was actually just thinking of, because apart from having yourself made like this, you had a little
Mhm.
ball of yourself made as well. So,
Yeah,
like,
so yeah, the ball's pretty cool. The ball's pretty cool. Yeah, that originally they said that was going to be CGI, but they talked about it for like 5 months. And they had a bunch of ideas. They just literally Steven Spielberg just came up to me one day and he said, "Listen, we've added in a scene." So when I did my one line in the movie, I was supposed to leave and go home. I was supposed to never be seen again. And one of the kids came up to me. He said, "Man, you got pure stardom, dude. You got stardom." And I said, "What is that supposed to mean?" He goes, "I think Steven Spielberg likes you. He's gonna probably keep you in the movie." And next thing I know, I left and went home, and my agent called and said, "Steven wants you for like another week or two." And then that week or two turned another week or two, and then um, when the movie ended, the last person to film in the movie was just me and Robin. The whole cast was gone, so I stayed almost the whole year working on the movie.
oh, wow.
So while we were doing that, um, there were times I don't know the whole background. I think Steven Spielberg was getting annoyed with probably a lot of the kids. And so they didn't fire anybody, but they started letting kids go. Like, 2, 3 months in, even though you see the kids in the movie, they were gone. So, we went from being like 60 kids down to like 5. And then they decided last minute that they wanted to kill Rufio because Rufio was going to be the leader still at the end. And then at the last minute, they just decided, let's kill Rufio. And then, they decided on a whim to make me, Peter Pan. But anyways, Steven Spielberg came up to me and said, I want to add in a scene where you take your legs and you put your legs, behind your head and you roll into a ball. And I thought that was so weird. And he goes, "You're going to hit all the pirates." I said, "Well, how am I going to do that?" He said, "We're going to hire a guy that does stunts and he can actually fold his legs and everything." And I said, "Okay." And weeks went by and they never brought in a guy. So Steven Spielberg's like, "We're filming tomorrow." And I'm like, "Well, how are we going to do it?" He goes, "We couldn't find a guy." And I'm like, "Oh, well, who's going to do it?" He goes, "You're going to do it." He goes, "You're going to sit down. You're going to put your legs behind your head. And then you're going to just like roll down into a ball." And I was just like, "What?" And I showed up to the set the next day. They put a giant piece of wood. They took one of the kids that was a lost boy in the movie. He was actually one of the skateboarders. He was like 6'2". He was a real tall, skinny guy. They put a bunch of pads on his legs. They had him lay under me and they put matching pants on him. And the scene where I grab my legs, it's his legs that I grabbed. And I grabbed his legs and he put on matching shoes. And then when I go to roll down, they brought in, I forget the name, of a very famous special effects company. They did all the special effects for Star Wars and Jaws and everything.
Industrial Light and Magic?
I think so.
Yeah.
And they built 2 of those giant balls. It's a foam ball that had my face. And I looked at the ball and I thought it was pretty cool. So they rolled the ball down, and they did it a bunch of times. And then there's a second time in the movie where it's unbelievable how they did it. But there's a scene where there's no cut, where I literally go like this, and then the ball rolls, and they literally had the ball at my knees. And as I fold it down, they move the camera around my body, so it was all one complete shot. But they had two of those balls. One I got to keep for myself. The other Steven Spielberg kept. And then the really cool thing was Steven Spielberg's neighbor was Tom Cruise. So they had like a big dinner. Yeah, they had like a big dinner at Steven Spielberg's house one night. And Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman all came over and had a big feast around the ball. It was so weird. Hollywood, you know.
Well, that goes my question of what did you manage to get from set? Because to actually get a replica of yourself was pretty cool. But was there anything else you managed to kind of get from set?
Oh, I took a bunch of stuff. I took a bunch of the sword that I got. I actually took several of them. Some I wasn't supposed to take. I kept some of the hats, the hat with the little red ball. I took a few of those. I think I took my I believe it or not, I only had I think like 3 of those. The costumes I wore in the movie, there were only like 3 of those costumes. So those costumes would get cleaned like every day. Because usually on a movie set you might have 10 of the same outfit, but I only had like 3. So I kept like one of the outfits, one of my tie, my pants. I kept 1 or 2 pairs of the shoes. What else? I kept like some of the jewelry that we had on in the movie, but it was hard to keep some of that stuff because the minute the movie ended, they immediately, I guess maybe to save themselves on money, they immediately put a lot of that stuff up for auction. And it went up for auction in I think in the UK. So
with your character, yours, granted, you only said you had one line, then you went off to do weeks of it. Your character is one of the only people who have like a one-on-one moment with Robin. I know Rufio kind of does, Dante does, but also Dustin's there as well, but it's just you and him. Were you nervous with doing that? Did Robin give you any advice with getting that scene done?
No, not at all. So like I said, so originally my character's name was Ziggy. And then they changed the name of Ziggy to Pockets. So Pockets was the lead little kid that got to do all the scenes with Robin. And they were about to do the scene with the little boy that played Pockets, and he loved the scene. And he's a really good friend of mine to this day. But he loved the scene, and he rehearsed his butt off to get that scene down pat. He was on the set one day. You know, I kind of remembered. It was very cute looking back, but he was on the set one day, and he kept saying, I'm going to do this scene with Robin, and I'm going to be the star, and I can't wait to do this scene. And none of the other kids, mind you, he's like 7 years old. He's like, none of the other kids, because kids who have been in Hollywood for, since they were 2 or 3, they, so like, So he was like, I'm going to do this scene, and I'm going to be the star of this movie, and I get to do the biggest scene with Robin Williams. And he was kind of throwing it in all the kids' faces, and he was throwing it in my face. And I didn't care. I was just happy to be there with my one line and all. And I had already said a bunch of lines. And Steven Spielberg heard him say that. And Steven stopped and went, and he just looked at me, and he looked at him, and he said, hey, he said, Isaiah. And the little boy playing Pockets said, yes, Steven. He said, you have the script right there in your hands, right? And he's like, yeah. He said, give me the script. And he gave him the script, and he took the script and handed it to me. He said, Thud, it's your role now. He said, I'm going to give you an hour. Learn the lines, come back and do it. And the little boy, looked at me, and about, I'll kid you not, 15 minutes later, I get a knock on my dressing room door. That was the hardest day for me. Get a knock on my dressing room door. And I didn't want to answer in my dressing room. So I had my father open the door, and the little boy was there. And he said, excuse me, is Raushan here? And my dad said, yes, but he's learning his lines. He said, well, let your son know I'm going to be suing him for taking my role in the treehouse scene. And my dad burst out into laughter. And he said, I'm going to talk to my attorney and I'll get back to you. So I was so stressed out because it's looking back at it is not a big deal, but his family was very angry. Wasn't my doing. And then when I went to film the scene in the treehouse, I was more nervous going up because that was a real makeshift treehouse that was really like 200 feet up in the air. So as I was doing that scene, the little boy and his parents were right there looking at me like this. And I had to sit there, and then I was so nervous being up top. I never rehearsed the scene with Robin. The only thing was I told Robin, I said, what happens if I fall and die? And they actually took a string. They took a little wire, and this wire could hold like 400 pounds. It was like aircraft cable. They ran it up my leg, and it tied around my waist. And Robin said, if you fall, you'll just fall and be dangling by your underwear, And I was just like, all right. So Robin just looked at me because Robin was a real cool guy. He didn't stress out about the acting or anything. He just said, you know your lines? I said, yeah. He said, all right, let's do it. And we probably shot it for an hour. But even though that scene looks so fluid, that whole time I'm doing the lines, there's like 2 or 3 cameras on us. I was more worried about falling to my death the whole time because where we were standing at in the opening of the movie, that thing collapsed. So it actually felt like that. So when I was walking, I was terrified. I had to play it off. I was terrified the whole time. So when people see that scene and they say that's one of their favorite scenes in the movie, even when I watch it to this day, I'm like, I was terrified the whole time.
Yeah, like it's such a little beautiful tender moment between your characters, and yeah, would not guess that you're kind of like, don't die, don't die, don't die the entire time.
Yeah. So yeah, it was cool. And looking back in hindsight, I think even though Steven took it the part from Pockets to me, I think it fit better because if you look back throughout the movie, I'm around Robin more because I don't think Steven even thought of me for doing the future stuff. I think he just, like there were certain parts, like maybe my first or second weekend of filming, where he would just tell me, I think it looks good if you would stand closer to Robin. And he would just have me stand there. It wasn't in the script or anything. Pretty much the original, like 2 or 3 scripts, they changed. Steven changed the script every 15 minutes, So he changed it so much that he kept having me stand so close to Robin or put my hand on his back or run with Robin that I think it made sense for me to do that treehouse scene.
Yeah, it does. Like, because even during like the food fight scene, you're like the one person who's supporting Peter in his banter.
Exactly. And I had no lines in the treehouse scene. I was just there, and Steven literally just came up to me and said, how about you start off because I start off the food fight. I had no idea that was going to happen because after the make-believe food, it's literally me that just says, Peter, catch, and then he goes, huh? And I hit him, and then he hits me. So that was kind of all stuff that Steven Spielberg was just sitting right there on the side of the camera going, just say Peter, catch. And then I kept, I asked so many questions. I kept asking Steven, I was different than all the other kids. I asked Steven about the lenses and every little aspect of the movie. And I would say, how do we do a food fight? Do we just throw food? And he would say, no, a food fight has to build. And then that's when he told me, you're going to start off the food fight. And then, it went, and the food fight was horrible. It took like 2 weeks to film that.
Oh, really?
Oh my God. In the movie, it's like 30 seconds. It took like 2 weeks. And the kids, most of the kids in the movie were like between 16 and 20 years old. And those kids, kids can be kids. Those kids were throwing those pies and the cheese and all that. They were throwing it like a baseball player.
Oh.
So they were literally taking it and throwing it super hard. So the scene, I was crying in between takes.
Oh.
And they had to tell the older kids, stop throwing a pie that hard at him, It got so bad that I couldn't hear for 2 days. I had pie in my eardrum and I had to go to the hospital. They had to pull pie and whipped cream out. I literally, people were talking to me and I couldn't hear a word, you know. It was
Jesus.
crazy.
I had no idea it took that long to do. Granted, I know
It's because
obviously
Steven
things take a while.
Spielberg's a perfectionist, and we
Yeah.
would film it. And so Steven Spielberg would do stuff like, you could film a great scene with him. It would take 2 or 3 days to film that one scene. You're done with it. And 2 weeks later, he would be like, you know what? I looked at the scene after we edited it. Some of it, didn't like it. We're going to do the whole thing over. And you go, oh, so it happened a lot where there were scenes where Robin Williams would fly and we'd film the flying scene where we're staring at him flying for like a week. And then Steven would come back and say, I didn't like those flying scenes. We're going to redo it all over again with Robin's stunt double, because the stunt double was better at flipping and spinning. So all the scenes where he flips and spins, that's a stunt double. But all the other scenes where it's up close, that's really Robin flying. He did all of his own flying. It's pretty cool.
That's really cool. What would be your
Yeah.
favorite moment that you had with Robin?
Oh my gosh. On set or off?
Either. You can have both.
Well, the treehouse had to be one of the most amazing things. I had to pinch myself every day because, a lot of kids, even though, we grew up around the time of Robin Williams, a lot of the kids didn't really know who he was. But I had older brothers and they loved watching Mork and Mindy and Dead Poet Society. So I grew up, 4 or 5 years old watching those movies. I probably shouldn't have been watching those movies, but my parents had my older brothers that were already 15, 16, 17, and 20 years old as my babysitter. So I just grew up watching Robin Williams. So when I got to the set, I didn't know that Robin Williams I didn't know anybody like who was going to be in the movie, but I knew everybody already. I knew who Dustin Hoffman was. I knew who Julia Roberts was. I'd already seen Pretty Woman. I'd already seen that movie. I watched it with my mother when it came out on VHS, and she was like, certain little scenes, or she would cover my eyes or whatever. And she was like, that woman has on a short dress, a short skirt, cover your eyes for a second. But I already knew who they were. But we had a thing called the wrap party. And the wrap party is normally when a movie is done with, a week or two later, you get together and have a big party for that movie. Well, Hook was only supposed to film for like 3 or 4 months, but it went past 6 and 7 months. So like 5 months in, they had already booked the wrap party to be held at Union Station, I believe, in downtown California. Steven Spielberg rented out Union Station, where, trains and buses run. He rented the whole place out and turned it into a casino. So he brought in blackjack tables, everything. That's how I got hooked on playing blackjack. And later in life, lost him over $1 million. That's a different story. But I went to the wrap party. And when you get there, they give you $10,000. It's not real dollars, but it's just $10,000 worth of chips. And you get to sit there and play blackjack all night. And then at the end of the night, you get to take your chips and you use that to buy yourself a TV or a bicycle or whatever. And a lot of the big stars from Hook weren't there, like Julia Roberts wasn't there. I don't think Dustin Hoffman was there. But out of the blue, it was so crazy. It was myself, maybe one of my brothers, my mom and my dad. We all sat down at a table having dinner, and a guy comes up with a baseball cap on and a polka dot shirt. And I hate that I lost the photo of this, but I had on the MC Hammer pants. Back in the day, MC Hammer, Vanilla Ice pants. I had on the parachute pants, and I had on a black button-up shirt with polka dots all over it. So the man comes over and says, mind if I sit down? Mm-hmm. That man was Robin Williams. And out of every major producer, the head of Universal Studios, Sony Studios was there. Robin Williams could have easily sat down and had dinner with them. No, he just sat down with us. And he sat down and cracked jokes. And he told my parents, he said, your son has a really big part in this movie, and I think he stole the show. And he goes, it's kind of hard for me to compete with your son. And my parents are like, come on, you're Robin Williams. But he sat there with us for like 3 hours. It was pretty cool. That was one of my favorite moments, that Robin Williams was not stuck up at all. Very, very cool guy.
Now, I've heard amazing things about him, so I would have loved to have the opportunity to meet him or have a small chat with him, or something similar to this. But unfortunately, circumstances.
Yeah.
What was your favorite moment on set? Apart, was it only just the treehouse scene?
Oh man, well, I could probably go on and on for hours. My first day that I finally got to work with Robin, when I said, "Who's the shrub?" Like I said, I didn't know who was in the movie. Nobody told me. I just never forget. I thought this was the oddest thing. I didn't know that Robin Williams is a very hairy man.
Yes.
He had hair that was on his arms and his hands, like up to here. And he had hair all over his back. Well, he had two assistants. They had made him take his shirt off, and they shaved him on set in front of everybody. And then they made him put his clothes on, and they told him, in this scene, you have to get dirty, because the stunt double was the one that fell down when the barrel hit him. And they said, we're going to go get some dirt and rub it over your body. And he said, I don't need any dirt. And he just leaped into like this little area where there was like a little lake and dirt, and he fell on it, and he rolled around like a kid. And he jumped up and he said, I'm dirty. And I looked at him and I said, oh my God. I said, you're the guy from Mork and Mindy. And I couldn't even think of the name Robin Williams. I just said, you're the guy from Mork and Mindy. And he said, yeah, and you are yourself. And I said, yeah. And then he just walked off. And then literally like 10 minutes later, we were doing the scene together. And we had so much fun. But there's a lot of scenes that you see in the movie that people have no idea, that it looks like there's a bunch of kids in the scene. A lot of the scenes, it's just him and I. Like scenes where it's like a close-up. Literally, the kids were already gone. They were back at home living their life. They inserted me and had me do a bunch of scenes where it was like him and I working together for maybe 3 weeks. Nobody else on set, just the producer, Steven Spielberg, Robin Williams, and myself. It was kind of lonely too, because there were no kids around to play with, and all the other shows went on hiatus. I think they were shooting the show Dallas. They were doing Perfect Strangers, Full House, and Family Matters. And all those shows were on hiatus, a little break. So it was just me and Robin Williams and Steven Spielberg. So that's the only people I got to hang out with or go to lunch with every day.
Just that's, even though obviously at the time being quite young, it would be just like, I'm hanging out with adults. But to say that now, just the privilege you had to get to say, I got to have lunch with Spielberg, I got to have a lunch with Robin Williams. That's incredible. Yeah. But also
I was used to it though, because I've been doing acting since I was like 4.
Yeah.
I was always used to hanging out with adults. Like I've honestly never really hung around kids unless it was on a set. I went to private school, and I lived from the age of 4 till I was 17 on sets. So I was so used to, it was normal for me.
I'm just a little bit jealous as well that you said that Jaleel White just came over and played basketball with you. I loved Family Matters growing up. I've just found it's currently playing on HBO Max in Australia. So I was like, I get to watch it again. I've always
well, I was on. That was my favorite show of all time. Still is one of my favorite shows of all time. My dream in life. So it was cool. I've lived every dream, because people always ask me this. I've lived every dream I've always wanted. Right. So my biggest dream in life was to do a movie with Steven Spielberg, because I loved E.T. as a kid. And I magically manifested that.
E.T.,
and then cool. And then my second goal in life was to be on Family Matters. So while I was filming Hook, the producers came over and talked to me. And at that time, they were having a dispute with Jaleel White that played Urkel. They were having some sort of a money dispute, and he quit the show. And when he quit the show, they hired me as the new Urkel. And I was so excited. And then at the last minute, the producers called me and said, that they were able, I can't say the amount of money. I don't want to put it out there, but they were able to come to some sort of a thing with Jaleel White where they rehired him and gave him what he wanted. So they turned around and basically essentially fired me without even shooting the first episode. But the producers felt so bad that they said, we'll just bring you on at least 1 or 2 episodes. So when you watch Family Matters, I think the episode is called The Gun. I'm featured on there in 2 scenes. So I got to be on the show. And my scene is with Urkel. So that's pretty cool.
That's
and
awesome.
then my third goal was to be on my second favorite show was ER. I fell in love with ER. I saw the first episode of ER. I think it was either 94 or 95. It came on as a teaser on NBC. And most kids wouldn't have liked the show. I just loved the concept. And then when I found out it was Steven Spielberg, I literally sat at home that night and I said, oh, God, I wish I could be on this show. I want to be on this show. My phone rang the next morning. Steven Spielberg called me in and I got featured to do an episode with George Clooney. And George Clooney plays my doctor. So I thought that was so surreal. And then my brothers love watching Tales from the Crypt. It was on HBO. And, I wasn't supposed to watch it, but my brothers would stay up late and we'd watch it together. And I thought that show was so scary but cool.
Yep.
And sure enough, I always wanted to be on the show. Tales from the Crypt calls me. They call me on the phone maybe a couple of weeks later. And they had me go down and meet the producers. And they wound up putting me in a big featured episode doing like 3 scenes. And it was so cool. I got to do the scene with Bill Paxton, from Twister.
Yeah.
He did that really cool movie with, unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. He did that incredible movie. I think it was like The Day After Tomorrow with Tom Cruise. He did
Aliens.
Yeah, I think he did Aliens, and he also did one of my favorite movies from the 80s, Weird Science.
Mm-hmm.
Love that movie where they built the woman from the computer.
Yeah.
And so it was him and Michael Lerner. And Michael Lerner was the dad that was in Clueless. He was in Harlem Nights with Eddie Murphy. He was a great actor. He unfortunately just passed away too. But I got to do the scene. I got to do like 3 featured scenes with them, and I got some great lines, and I got to get beaten up by Bill Paxton in the scene. and he really beat me up. And looking back, it hurt so much to get beaten up by Bill Paxton, but I'm honored. It was cool. And he told me, he said, don't tell the producers. Don't tell the director. He goes, in the scene, I'm going to beat you up. And I said, yeah. I said, well, how are you going to do it? He goes, no, I'm going to really like hurt you. And I laughed and giggled. He goes, no. He goes, I want it to look real on camera. So when the camera rolled, he really beat me up. And even the director was like, wow, you guys worked it out really good. He's like, it looks like you're really beating up a child,
Yeah,
but,
acting.
Acting. But yes, I got to do those. I got to do some of the coolest shows, and then I got to star on or guest star on my favorite Nickelodeon show, which was called Wild and Crazy Kids. I thought that was pretty cool. I got to go on there as a guest star. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Wild and Crazy Kids, but it was a show on Nickelodeon where you had Cuba Gooding Jr.'s little brother was the host. And then there was a female and another male host. So it's like 3 16-year-old kids. And they go to different parts of California and they play games, and crazy games. Like they'll take a bunch of kids and put them in a hot air balloon and make them bungee jump. And, they have a stunt coordinator, but they do these wild and crazy stunts with other teenage kids. So I got to go on there and be a co-host. And then I got to do some of the stunts with them. I didn't bungee jump, but thank God I didn't, because one day while I was on the set, they had a kid actually bungee jump. And that's why I'll never bungee jump. The kid bungee jumped and the bungee cord actually snapped and the kid fell. But luckily they put a big airbag on the ground and the kid hit it. And I went, okay,
That's always
that
been
was
my
a
biggest
really cool
fear.
show.
Anytime I see anyone bungee jump, I'm like, it's going to snap. I just know it. I shouldn't manifest that. But you need to teach me your ways of manifesting things. Just going I want to be on that show, ring, ring, be on the show. How do you do that?
Yeah. Oh my God. It's so weird because people tell me, I always get people, like, I get a lot of haters. And, I'll get people all the time because I literally get people that say, obviously I've been on the biggest television shows, some of the biggest TV shows of all time, but I get a lot of people that will say, "Hey man, you never did anything else. You only did that Peter Pan movie." And I'll go, "No, I did this, I did this, I did this, I was doing internet television commercials before the internet was popular. I'm one of the people that ushered in the internet. And I don't know if you remember back in the early 2000s, they had internet cafes.
Yeah.
Where you could go to a coffee shop and rent a laptop or a computer right there. So I used to do for IBM, I used to do the IBM commercials for them, promoting that stuff. And I don't know, since I was a child, my dad was a famous musician. My dad was always on the road. And my mother had a regular job. And when my mother would come home or my dad would come home, when they were busy, we were the only people on our block with a VCR.
Mhm.
So, back then VCRs were like $1,000 and everything was expensive. So the only thing that my parents got was one VCR, one VHS tape, and that VHS tape was Thriller. And I was I think I was 2.5 years old. And my parents taught me how to use the VCR. I would sit there 8 to 10 hours a day in my room just watching Thriller. It scared the heck out of me. But I had the Thriller tape that was behind the scenes. And I watched it and I kept watching. I mean, I literally watched that tape so much that I finally by the time I was 3, I knew what directors wanted. I kind of got the kind of the gist of how Michael Jackson worked. And I like the fact that, Michael Jackson would talk about, how he would build something. He wanted to create something and he would just make a phone call, or he would think about something or dream about something. And he would talk about creation. And that kind of stayed in my mind. So I never ever thought like anything was impossible. So me seeing Michael Jackson and then seeing the behind the scenes, and then later on seeing that him and Steven Spielberg did a soundtrack for E.T., I was like, man, I got to meet Michael Jackson. I got to meet Steven Spielberg, and I got to do a movie with Steven Spielberg. I didn't know how I would meet Steven Spielberg. That literally stayed in my mind every single day. I thought about it at school. I would tell kids at school, "Oh, I'm going to do a movie with Steven Spielberg." And kids are like, "Who's Steven Spielberg?" I'm like in the first grade. And then second grade, I get to third grade, and then I'm actually doing a movie with Steven Spielberg. And I'm still telling the kids at my school, "I'm doing a movie with Steven Spielberg and Robin Williams. And I just did a big, Burger King commercial." And they're just like, "Okay." So I've always been that person that's uh, manifested that stuff. Just anybody can do it. You just got to believe in yourself. But literally, because everybody says you got to believe in yourself. But if you think about something, it's like becoming a great basketball player, a great athlete. If you think about it and you harness it and you practice it, there's no way you can't achieve it because you're thinking about it so much. There's no way that you can't get good at something. Because I'm not just an actor. I like to sew. I make clothes. I make T-shirts. I make suits. I make hats. I'm a jack of all trades. I'm a magician. I've been a magician since I was 9.5 years old. So whatever I like, I stay at it. I think about it, but I practice it a lot.
Mhm.
So I practice stuff so much. There's no way that you can't. It's like you having a podcast. Sure, you woke up one day and you're like, "I want to have a podcast." Well, I've met 100 people that tell me they want a podcast, but they haven't done it because they keep putting it on the back burner.
Yeah.
They keep saying, instead of just getting up, people say, "Well, I don't have a good camera," or "I don't have a good mic." It's like, dude, you just get up with your phone if you have to and start it.
Yeah. So this is by technology standards, this laptop is older than religion. It still works.
Okay.
It's getting the job done. This is from Kmart in Australia. This is like a $30 mic. It does the job.
Did you say Kmart?
Yeah, we have Kmart here. It's an
Oh, okay. We had
institution
Kmart here, but they closed down out here.
Yes, I've heard about that because I
Yeah,
also
they had
remember.
Kmart since I was a baby. They closed down like 5 years ago. They went bankrupt. But
It
I
is
didn't know they were still out there.
it
Wow.
is a massive institution here. Like anytime something new is out, it's like TikTok videos. This new at Kmart. We've got this, and this.
Oh, wow.
People love Kmart here.
Wow.
So yeah,
That's amazing.
Kmart Mike does the job. Sounds great.
Okay. Yeah.
And what you're saying, I completely agree with, because I know so many people, because I do some writing as well. And people will go,
Okay.
oh, I've got this great idea. I'm going to do this and write this and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, yeah, but when are you going to do it? Because you can't say, one day I'm going to have this. You need to start it so that one day appears on a calendar and then you get to work towards it. But people just
Exactly.
go, okay. But the one day isn't anywhere on a calendar until you start making it happen.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's
That's the only way to work.
Yeah. Every time I hear it one day,
the only
I'm
way
like,
your bed gets made is if you wake up and make it.
exactly. Yeah.
Or at least hire a maid.
But also you saying that you've had like older brothers, so you from 5 years old you're watching all these 80s movies. I've got an older brother who's 5 years older, so I feel like
Okay.
I've got an extra 5 years out of the 80s because I was watching all the things that he was watching. So I watched like Ninja.
Oh, okay.
I'm an 87 baby, so I got
okay.
I got some more years out of it. And I feel like I went to primary school being like, I watched the Goonies, and everyone's like, what's that? People know Three Ninjas,
yeah.
but they didn't know Goonies. And I'm like, how do you not know Goonies? How do you not Goonies Never Say Die? And yeah, Family Matters, you mentioning that, my absolute favorite. I've always wanted the puppet from the Halloween episode, like the marionette puppet of Steve Urkel. I want it so bad.
I wonder who has that.
You don't have it, do you? You didn't sneak that off the set, did
you? No.
So how did you get into being like a magician? Because do you actually still do it like now?
I still do magic. I'm working on a film right now, so I've been a magician for the last since I was 9.5 years old. But I've been touring professionally as a magician since like the year 2000. I do normally 500 shows a year. This year I haven't even done one show. I only have one show I'm doing, and that's like next month in Las Vegas. But normally every year since the year 2000, I do about 500 to 550 shows a year. But believe it or not, most actors are magicians.
Yeah.
So back in the day, when I would go to movie studios, there was a magic shop in Hollywood, California, and this place was a massive magic shop. Everybody went there. All the magic shop had been there, I think, since the 30s or 40s. It was called Hollywood Magic, and I used to go there. And my mother had a thing, like if I did a good job and I booked a movie or a TV show or a commercial, she would give me like $500 to go into the magic shop every week, and I could buy whatever I wanted. And I hate that she did that because, man, I spent thousands of dollars in there. And in the end, it's so funny when I do my own show now, all I use in my own show is like some birds and a handkerchief, and the rest is audience participation. But anyways, I went there and I would just go in there and learn magic, and I would meet magicians. And then I started going to the world famous Magic Castle. And when I went to the Magic Castle, I learned like Johnny Carson was a magician. He was a member. He did magic. I met Johnny a couple of times. Steve Martin was a magician. Instead of being Houdini, he was the Great Fly-Dini. So he would unzip his pants and pull things out of his pants and stuff. And he also worked at, before Steve Martin was rich and famous, he worked at the magic shop in Disneyland in California.
Oh, I didn't know
that. Yes. So I found out there were a lot of, when I went to the Magic Castle, there were a lot of a lot of actors that are magicians, but they don't do it professionally. They just hang around at the Magic Castle and do card tricks and little things. But there's a lot of them out there. Even it's funny, a lot of people had no idea. You know the show Seinfeld?
Yeah.
You know George Costanza?
Yep.
He's a magician in real life.
I didn't know that.
And he just did 25 shows at the Magic Castle last week.
Oh, wow.
People, yeah, it was sold out. People couldn't believe it. But I've known that he was a magician for the last 30 years. He really shows up looking just like he did on Seinfeld. He has a box and brings out a deck of cards and does a whole magic act.
Seinfeld is that popular here in Australia. There was actually a bar in Melbourne called like Costanza, like named after him.
Oh wow, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. Okay.
And there was also a bar that was themed after Corey Feldman as well.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I know
Yeah.
Corey.
Yeah, because they actually, I think it was called Feldman's. They made it look like like the lighthouse like restaurant from the Goonies. So it had like all that kind of atmosphere. The
Oh
drinks were named after like the Frog Brothers and whatnot. Yeah.
wow. Okay.
There,
Oh,
there's
that's
some
cool.
there's some cult followings here in Australia. That's why I'm trying to get some guests I've had on the show to make their way out. I spoke to an actor from the Goosebumps series in the 90s a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
And I was like, there's a big following here. Come to Australia. We want to see you.
Oh, okay.
Like,
Cool. Maybe I'll come down there one of these days.
I think you should. Hook for me was a film that when anytime it was on television, regardless of if it was a school night or whatever, we were always allowed to watch the whole thing. Wasn't a case of, okay,
Oh,
it's
okay.
9 o'clock, go to bed, always got to watch
Because
it.
it is a long movie.
It's a very long movie, but my parents just always let us watch it. And it's just, I was actually talking to someone I was working with the other day saying, have you seen Hook? And she's like, no. And I was like, how have you not seen Hook? Granted, she's like 22 or something like that. But it made me think, because I'm thinking it's people who are like our age that are raising kids now, but yet they're not getting exposed to the films that we were seeing when we were kids. Someone did a video once saying that people our age have like a better pop culture knowledge because when cable came out, no channels were competing against each other. They just got what they got. And, so we got to see Bewitched and we got to see Get Smart. But it doesn't have that now because everyone's competing against each other. And some people have just made their kids iPad kids, so they just get exposed to just kind of the limited things on YouTube and whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm always advocating, like, guys, you need to watch Hook. It's got a stacked cast. It's got these people. They're like, who's that? How do you not know who Dustin is? I can't even say you'll find Glenn Close because I go, who's that? I'm like, how do you not know who Glenn Close is? She's the bunny boy.
I know.
How
And
do you not know?
she's still doing acting. Yeah. She's still doing tons of shows.
But yeah, no, trust me, I will always advocate for everyone to get to see this little guy and to watch him roll.
Hey, tell me this. I've noticed online there's been a lot of people in Australia that have those toys. Are they easier to find out there or something?
Well, this I actually found at a Savers, so I found him in a thrift shop, and I didn't have one growing up.
Wow.
Probably about 10 years ago, I found him, but my brother got one probably around the time the VHS had come out.
Oh, okay.
But yeah,
okay.
no, we did have these.
I see them online right now. They're selling them in Australia right now for like, what do you call your money out there?
Just Australian dollars.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're selling them for like 350 Australian dollars out there. I see it on eBay and stuff. And I've been wondering, I'm like, why do I keep seeing them for sale in Australia? Because you can't find it out here.
Really?
Nobody has it out here. Yeah. That's very, very expensive. Out here, I've autographed them for people. They like at a convention, they'll immediately put them back online for $800. Yeah, they're like so hard to find. So I was just intrigued when you pulled it out and showed it.
No, because my brother always had one, and because there's only one, and he was the boy, he got to have it. And then when I saw one, I'm like, I get to have one. I was so excited that I got to have him because, as you can see, I've got quite a collection of pop culture stuff, and he lives.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
We have a what do you call it coming out? The Funko Pops.
Yep.
We have a Peter Pan theme Funko Pop coming out soon.
So you're getting one of yourself as well?
Yeah, so it'll be just like Rufio, me, Peter, and Dustin.
I'm gonna have to buy a Thudbutt one and put them up here.
Yeah.
Goonies and Big Trouble, Little China, Gremlins. They're gonna have to go up there now.
Oh, definitely.
So I actually heard that you, granted, don't have to give me details, but you've been working on a Peter Pan film, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been taking me forever, and everybody's like, "Is it really coming out?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's really coming out." We changed the storyline a bunch of times. First, we had a killer storyline, and then found out we were gonna get in trouble and be sued because it took time. We had to rechange everything. So think about this new movie. It's not the same as Hook, but it's the aspect of it, but it actually kind of deals with what happened when Peter left.
Yep.
And it's a pretty intriguing story. What happened with Peter left and the downfall of Neverland, because Hook basically died at the end. So what happened to Neverland and the transition and the magic is gone basically, because that's how Neverland worked. It was the magic of Hook and the fun and the Lost Boys, had fun hanging out with Peter. So Peter's gone, Hook's gone, and the aftermath, and we take you on an adventure. So we really originally wrote the script maybe 15 years ago, changed it. Then about 5 years ago, we started working on it. And then we paused. I wanted to make some more changes. Got some more investors involved. And now the script is unreal. It's unbelievable. We're going to be working on the movie probably until the end of October, hoping to finally have it released by around Christmas time. And then once it's released, we'll be doing independent screenings and premieres all over the world. So I've already got like screenings lined up in Spain and in London and stuff like that. So we'll be doing that and promoting it all online. And, it's pretty cool. But it's called Hook versus Neverland.
I like that. You get to show the world what it would be like without Captain Hook. That's a really
exactly what it would be like without Captain Hook. And with this movie, we're doing it. We're going back to the old school Steven Spielberg type of filming. We're shooting it back how movies were shot in the late 80s and 90s. We're not doing the crazy shots and having drones fly out and spiral. We're doing simple shots,
Have you got any of your former castmates involved in production as well?
I can't say. You're gonna have to watch.
Fine. No. No, but that's really exciting. That's really cool. Because it just, I don't know, like when Wicked came out, or when like the idea of Wicked, showing, how Oz was before and after the witches, I was just like, Hook did that. Hook showed you what happened when Peter left and what happened to Neverland after that. So I was like, nah, Hook did it first. Well, Raushan, thank you so much. This has been really cool. This was really fun. And I'm really glad I got to talk about Hook, because I feel like I just don't get to talk about it with people, and I got to talk about it with my favorite Lost Boy.
Oh, thank you. And I only did your podcast just so I could hear that accent.
Hopefully it wasn't too annoying, because I remember
no, not at all.
I've been to Los Angeles twice, and I feel like I got annoyed with my own accent. I felt like it sounded like I was putting it on.
Okay. No, I love accents, because I get messaged, and I kid you not, I probably get 150 to 200 messages from people on social media every day. They'll send me an actual voice message, and it's from all over the world. And it's just so amazing how amazing the world is, because you get people from London and also I get a lot of people recently from Australia. In the last maybe 3 months, a lot of people buy my autograph pictures and posters and stuff like that. I get a lot of people, and then they'll send me a voicemail, and I'm like, wow. I'm like, hear that? That's so cool. I had no idea. Like, I really didn't realize, like in China or Japan or Spain, I didn't know that. I just found out in Spain they still do screenings of Hook like once a month.
Oh, wow.
Like, I was like, I had no idea. And they were like, you should come down here. We'll pay you just to sit and watch it with the audience. I'm like, you guys still watch it and do that? They're like, yeah, it's people really. I'm like, I had no idea Spanish people were into that down there.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that is really cool. But if when the new Hook movie's done, would you come back and talk about it on the podcast with me?
Of course. Yeah, definitely reach out to me, or I'll reach out to you. We got to promote it. We got to tell everybody. And make sure everybody knows you can follow me on social media, on Instagram, Raushan Hammond Official, and same thing, Raushan Hammond on TikTok.
Well, Raushan, thank you so much for this. It was a lot of fun. Can't wait to see you again on the podcast later in the year.
Thank you. Toodles. Bangarang.
Bangarang. Well, thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe. Do all those great things. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.